The Ennead in Egyptian mythology, also known as the Heliopolitan Ennead, is a group of 9 major deities featured in the creation myths of ancient Egypt. They include Atum, Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nut, Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. However, the list sometimes varies, replacing Osiris with Ra or Horus. The word Trụ in the Vietnamese name might remind us of the pillars in modern manga, such as Demon Slayer, but in Egyptian mythology it simply means lord or pillar, a term used to classify and remember the gods. The story begins with Atum, the creator god, regarded as the origin of the cosmos. Mythology recounts that he emerged from the primordial waters, a chaotic, dark ocean, not just ordinary water, but more like the waters of life. Some scholars even interpret it as amniotic fluid, symbolizing birth itself. Atum was a dual-gender deity who created the first generation of gods by himself. His name Atum literally means the complete one. In Egyptian art, Atum is usually depicted as a man wearing the double crown, holding a scepter and the ankh, the cross of life. In early depictions, however, he sometimes appeared as a serpent, symbolizing both death and rebirth. The myths surrounding the creation of the next generation of gods are unusual. Some say Atum produced them with his own hand. Others say he spat them out, giving birth to Shu, the god of air, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture. Atum is not only the primordial god, but also embodies both the beginning and the end of the world. If he were to vanish, the universe itself would collapse. In popular belief, the Egyptians associated Atum with the eel, viewing the animal as his incarnation and even mummifying eels for worship. Later, Atum was merged with the sun god Ra, becoming Atum-Ra. People believed that the midday sun was Ra, while the setting sun was Atum. The greatest enemy of Atum-Ra was Apep, Apophis, the colossal serpent of chaos, also born from the primordial waters. Each night, as the solar bark sailed through the underworld, Atum-Ra had to battle Apep. This eternal struggle represented the unending conflict between light and darkness. Atum's first 2 children were Shu and Tefnut. Shu was the god of dry air, while Tefnut was the goddess of moisture. They were both siblings and consorts. Shu embodied the dry winds, while Tefnut embodied dampness. Together, they produced clouds, rain, and life itself. In artistic depictions, Shu was often painted green, while Tefnut appeared red, symbolizing their duality, like water and fire. From this pair were born Geb, the god of the earth, and Nut, the goddess of the sky. Their bond was so close that they clung tightly to one another, preventing light from reaching the world. Thus, Atum commanded Shu to intervene, lifting Nut into the heavens while pressing Geb down as the earth. This separation brought order to the cosmos. Another myth recounts that Tefnut once left home, disrupting the natural balance. It was only through the wisdom of Thoth, the god of knowledge, that she was brought back. From then on, each morning at sunrise, Shu and Tefnut greeted the light together, symbolizing harmony and the eternal cycle. Yet Tefnut also had a destructive aspect. She was often equated with Sekhmet, the goddess of war and devastation. When humanity became corrupt, Ra once sent Sekhmet to punish mankind. Her slaughter was so merciless that Ra feared humanity would be annihilated. The gods devised a clever plan. They brewed beer dyed red to resemble blood, and Sekhmet drank until she became intoxicated, forgetting her fury. Thus, humankind was spared. In memory of this, the Egyptians held annual beer festivals. One might say that in Egyptian mythology, beer once saved the world, a detail as intriguing as Japan's myths of divine sake. Geb, son of Shu and Tefnut, was the god of the earth. He was not only a deity, but also the very embodiment of the land itself. The Egyptians believed that wheat sprouted from his ribs, grass grew from his spine, and fresh waters flowed from his body, symbols of fertility and abundance. Thanks to Geb, humanity never lacked sustenance, for he granted crops and blessings to the soil. Geb married his sister Nut, and their love was so intense that they could not be separated. But their father Shu forced them apart. Nut was raised into the sky, and Geb was pressed down into the earth. This separation defined heaven and earth, creating the world as we know it, an event the Egyptians called the splitting of the sky and the earth. From then on, Shu had to uphold the heavens, lest Nut descend again to embrace Geb. This separation caused Geb immense sorrow. He lay upon the ground, forever yearning for Nut. Yet from this anguish, Geb gained power, and he was revered as Egypt's first pharaoh. In myth, he once rose up in fury, overthrowing his father and unleashing storms for 9 days before restoring order, building temples, and later handing authority to his son. From then on, pharaohs were considered descendants and inheritors of Geb's will, ruling humanity in place of the earth god himself. Though a god of fertility, Geb was also feared. A single laugh from him could shake the entire earth. Egyptians believed that the souls of the dead had to pass through Geb's body to enter the afterlife. Without his permission, They would be buried forever in the ground, never reaching their destination. A punishment even more dreadful than hell. Nut, both wife and twin sister of Geb, was the goddess of the sky. She enveloped the world, and her body was the very pathway the sun traveled each day, entering through her mouth, moving across her body, and setting in the west. By day, Nut gave birth to the sun. By night, she swallowed it again, symbolizing death and rebirth. Even stars and human souls entered her body to reach the afterlife. Egyptians believed her tears became rain, and her laughter turned into thunder. When separated from Geb, Nut became pregnant with 4 children. But her grandfather Atum forbade her to give birth on any day of the year. Through the wisdom of Thoth, 5 extra days were created, allowing her to bear Osiris, the god of fertility and ruler of the underworld; Isis, the goddess of agriculture and magic; Set, the god of chaos and war; and Nephthys, the goddess of mourning and funerary rites. From here, Egyptian mythology entered a new chapter, shaped by some of its most significant deities. Among them, Osiris became the central figure. He was both the god of agriculture and the lord of the underworld, a strange yet meaningful combination, symbolizing that life is always bound to death, and from death comes rebirth. Osiris is mentioned most frequently in the Book of the Dead, which served as a guidebook for souls on their journey to the afterlife. He married his sister Isis, while his brother Set wed Nephthys. Later, Osiris was betrayed by Set, leading to a tragic family feud and the long-lasting conflict with Horus, Osiris's son. It was precisely this closeness among the gods and the tragic nature of their family dramas that made Egyptian mythology feel both sacred and profoundly human. Set is one of the most famous gods in Egyptian mythology. Anyone who has watched Yu-Gi-Oh! Will likely remember Seto Kaiba. The character was, in fact, inspired by the god Set. In mythology, Set was simultaneously a god of fertility, destruction, and war. He was also the sworn enemy of the chaotic serpent Apophis, the eternal adversary of the sun god Ra. In the beginning, Set was once regarded as a heroic figure who defended the sun from darkness. But over time, his image shifted into that of villainy, forever linked to chaos and betrayal. The Egyptians told that during his battle with Horus, the blood of Set spilled onto the desert, creating the oases in the west. Yet, even before birth, Set already harbored resentment toward his brother Osiris. According to myth, while still in his mother's womb, he tried to tear open her womb in order to be born first and claim the right of the eldest, but in the end, Osiris was born before him. As an adult, that jealousy turned into conspiracy. Set devised a plan to murder Osiris through a banquet. At the feast, he presented a splendidly crafted coffin and declared he would gift it to whoever fit inside it perfectly. Out of curiosity, Osiris lay down, and as fate would have it, the coffin was made exactly to his size. In an instant, Set and his accomplices slammed the lid shut, sealed it tightly, and cast it into the Nile. Isis, Osiris's wife, tirelessly searched for her husband, but Set struck again, stealing the coffin, dismembering Osiris's body, and scattering the pieces into the river. This became known as the very first dismemberment murder in mythology. Isis patiently gathered each part of his body, much like assembling an exodia in a manga. Unfortunately, Osiris's genitalia was lost forever. She then sought the aid of Anubis, the son of Osiris, and Nephthys. Anubis fashioned the missing part, wrapped the entire body in linen, and thus created the first mummy, the origin of Egyptian mummification. Thanks to the resurrection ritual performed by Isis and Nephthys, Osiris was revived for a brief moment. However, with an incomplete body, he could not remain in the mortal realm. Ultimately, Osiris chose to descend into the underworld, becoming the ruler of the dead. From then on, he embodied both fertility, the symbol of rebirth, and sovereignty over the underworld, where he judged which souls were worthy of paradise. Before leaving the living world, Osiris and Isis shared one final union. As a result, Isis conceived Horus, the god who would later become Set's greatest rival. From that point forward, Osiris reigned over the underworld, judging the dead much like a king of hell in Egyptian belief. The souls he deemed worthy would enter the Field of Reeds, a land of eternal bliss. Isis was the wife of Osiris and one of the most important goddesses. She possessed powerful magic and was the one who directly helped her husband return to life. The image of Isis holding the infant Horus in her arms was later compared to that of the Virgin Mary cradling the Christ child in Christianity. Together with Osiris, she also taught humankind how to cultivate and practice agriculture. Therefore, both were regarded as benevolent deities who brought life to humanity. Even more fascinating, the star Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, was considered the embodiment of Isis. Its rising signaled the flooding of the Nile. Though it might sound like a catastrophe, the floods were actually a blessing. They enriched the land with fertile silt, making the soil productive and ensuring abundant harvests. For this reason, Isis was not only a goddess of magic, but also a symbol of life and prosperity. Returning to the myth, after Osiris's death, Isis had to raise her son Horus alone in hardship. By her side, however, was Nephthys, her sister who left Set to assist her. Surprisingly, Nephthys chose to stand with Isis. Yet disaster struck. While Isis was away, Set secretly poisoned young Horus. Nephthys wailed in agony, and her grief was so immense that it unleashed a terrifying surge of power, causing the solar bark in the heavens to halt in its course. This was proof of Nephthys's fearsome strength. Fortunately, Thoth, the wise god aboard the sun bark, descended to the earth, used his magic to dispel the poison, and restored Horus to life. Outraged by Set's crime, Isis and Horus brought the case before the tribunal of the Ennead, the 9 gods, instead of seeking vengeance through violence. Thus began a dramatic trial between Horus and Set over the right to inherit the throne. Horus asserted that he was the rightful heir, while Set appealed to his own accomplishments in battle. The sun god Ra seemed to favor Set, believing Horus too young to rule. Yet if Set were to ascend the throne, Egypt would surely fall into chaos. During the proceedings, Isis once uncovered one of Set's schemes, but in her mercy, she forgave him. This act infuriated Horus, who in anger struck down his own mother and severed her head. Fortunately, it was only a magical duplicate. Though Isis was wounded, she survived. The conflict grew more tragic when Set gouged out Horus's eye. Only Thoth's magic was able to heal him. The struggle dragged on for 80 years. In the end, Isis employed her cunning to outwit Set, enabling Horus to claim victory and ascend the throne. This resolution reflected the essence of Isis, overcoming enemies not through force, but through wisdom. Set was banished from Egypt, becoming the god of distant lands, worshipped in oases and deserts, the domains of foreigners. In Egypt he was reviled as a demon, yet in remote regions Set was still venerated. Truly, change the place and the reputation changes as well. Among the 9 gods, Nephthys was the youngest and a particularly intriguing figure. She was the goddess of fertility, night, and death. Her marriage with Set was loveless and barren, yet she bore a child with Osiris. If Isis symbolized life and the day, Nephthys embodied night and endings, seen as the herald of the new year. Some even believed that for this reason she was the strongest goddess, representing both destruction and rebirth. Yet compared to Set, her image remained relatively obscure and less frequently mentioned. At this point, many Yu-Gi-Oh fans may wonder, why is an obelisk among the 9 Egyptian gods? In truth, the obelisk was merely a monumental structure, not a deity. Thus, the familiar trio in the game and anime does not fully align with original Egyptian mythology. And with that, the story of the 9 Egyptian gods comes to a close. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support our channel. Goodbye, and see you in the next content.